I've taken a little bit of a break from some of the other videos that I've done recently, things like vector network analyzers and spectrum analyzers made on software-defined radios, things like that. And I'm taking a little bit of a nostalgia trip back into the 1950s and 1960s, and I'm calling this series the Frugal Repairman. It's going to be in several parts, and I kind of have a plan, which I'll go over in a second. But what you see in front of you is a typical radio from the 1940s. This actually, I think, was built in 1946 or 47, though the literature on it varies. For example, I looked it up on the radio collector's website, and they say that it was built in 1947. I think you see it right there, 1947 and before, they say. And it's in volume 15 of Riders. So I went to volume 15, and for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, I'll go over all of this, how you get this stuff and everything. This is intended to be a really start-from-scratch video series. So if you're just intrigued by old radios and you don't have any equipment, you've never worked on any of them, but you'd like to learn a little bit about it, then I hope this series will be for you. And for those of you that just want a little nostalgia, like me, maybe there'll be something in it for you as well. So this is the Watterson Model 4581. Now, how did I find that out? Well, on the front, it says Watterson. Right there, and you notice also below it says Dallas. This radio was made right here in Texas. Yeah, I'm a Texan now. I was born in San Francisco and spent my early years there, but I'm a Texan now, and so I thought it would be appropriate to pick a radio from the period that was maybe a Texas radio, because in the late 50s and early 60s, my family had actually moved to Texas from California, and I got my start repairing radios like this. On the back, there is a model number right there. A little hard to read, but it's a 4581. By the way, you notice that the power cord's cut off on this. I always do that with old stuff like this because I do not want somebody plugging it in. And we'll talk about that when we get to a point in the future, but certainly not in this segment. So this is a radio that is typical of the post-war table radios. It's called an All-American 5. All-American because it was a typical radio. 5 because it has 5 tubes. Let me back out just a little bit further here on the zoom, and you'll see there's a tube here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now this thing over here, that's not a tube, that's a capacitor. This is a transformer, of course a speaker. These are transformers. We'll talk about all of this as we get along. But the main thing I want to do today is just give you an introduction to what this series is about. And I'm hoping to keep the videos down to about 8 or 9 minutes, 10 minutes max. So let's go over the kind of the overview and then wrap up this first video. Okay, Frugal Repairman Part 1. The Frugal, I'm of Scottish heritage, and so to me, frugal, or if you want to call it cheap, is is good. Cheap is a virtue. You'll see that down here in my early statements. So what are we going to do? Well, the equipment that we're going to be looking at is vacuum tube equipment. We're primarily going to focus on radio, but we'll touch on television and audio a little bit. We're really looking for minimum investment. In fact, I think you'll find that you can get through this entire series with your first radio, and all you need to own is a multimeter, which you can get for anywhere from $7 to $700 on various websites and other places, new or used, and we'll talk about that. But the idea is free is better. If you have to spend money, cheap is a virtue, and you want to make minimum changes to the equipment. In other words, we're not talking about here somebody who, what they often call shotgunning, where you just basically go in and change everything. We're also going to focus more on repairing rather than restoring. I've done some videos on restoring, but we're mainly going to look at what is the minimum investment you can put into an old radio to get it back to working condition. And the process is think first. Gather as much information as you can about it. It doesn't hurt to have something like this this page out of the Rider's Manual, which I will close by showing you how I got that. Practice makes perfect. You really need to try these things. It's fun to watch the videos, and I certainly have nothing against somebody who does that. But if you really want to learn this stuff, you want to get an old radio and at least a multimeter and really practice. Fewest toys wins. I'm as big a toy snob as anybody. I've got all kinds of expensive equipment. I've worked with equipment that single piece of equipment cost over $100,000. I've had a lab that cost about $7 million to equip. That was sort of my lab. At least that's what they called it, because I was the boss. It really wasn't just mine. But at any rate, so I certainly have been a toy snob. But the point of this series is do it with the fewest toys. We're going to look at some resources, some books on theory as well as on reference. By reference, I mean things that tell you the specifics about a particular radio or TV. With the free is better philosophy, we're going to try to do most of this online. We're going to have mention three sites: the AmericanRadioHistory.com, Boat Anchor Manuals, and Nostalgia Air. And we're going to look at that first one, American Radio History, in a minute. There also are lots of videos, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention mentors. If you can, and try to find a mentor, somebody who understands this stuff. It'll help you both from the standpoint of learning as well as keep you safer if you have a mentor to look to. Local radio clubs, sometimes community colleges, might be able to put you in touch with somebody who is an old dinosaur like me, perhaps, or maybe even a younger fella or gal who has taken this stuff up. Back in the day, it was all guys. I don't think I met a single woman in electronics until after I graduated from college. But today, it's very much a hobby as well as a profession, open to all. So now let's take a look at this AmericanRadioHistory.com, and I'll show you how I got the reference data on this radio. So here I am in Google. I'm going to enter AmericanRadioHistory.com. And here is the page that comes up. Now we're going to scroll down a little ways here to On the left here, you see where it says Rider Manuals. And we're going to click on that. And then you will see a series of volumes over here on the right. Now, I happen to know this is in volume 15. But if you don't know where it is, over here on the left are a bunch of indexes. Now, unfortunately, the first index only covers volumes 1 to 10, the second index 11 to 13, then there's one for 14 and 15, and then starting with volume 16 you can get combinations. I recommend that you download this one, volume 16 to 22, because if you're above volume 15, this covers all the rest of the volumes. But we're going to go right here to 1945. You notice it's volume 15, and because we know it's a Watterson, we're going to go over here to this section that says VWXYZ, because Watterson is in that range. I'm going to click on that, and this is what we'll download. Now, we're going to go down here a ways to, let's see where we are. Okay, we're at Walgreen. There we are. Okay, now we are at the particular one that we need. Which is the model 4581. So that's how I downloaded it, and I wanted to show you this because I think this is the best website for antique radioers like me, and I hope you. It has everything from lots of good general books on radio. It's got lots of radio history, everything from the broadcasting end to the repair. It's just basically a great resource. So once again, AmericanRadioHistory.com. My only connection with this site is I have donated material to the site. I have no financial connection, and the beauty is this is a free site. They don't charge anything. In fact, I tried to send the guy some donations who runs this, and he said, no, I had a good career in radio, and I'm doing this as a labor of love. So once again, AmericanRadioHistory.com. Go there, check it out, and hopefully you'll stay tuned as well for some futures in this series on the Frugal Repairman. But for now, have a nice day.